Hello, everyone, and welcome to Physically Establishing Relationships. That's what we'll call this video anyway. All right? All right. In our previous video, we went through how to apply the foreign key based upon your database design, be it one-to-many or many-to-many. Now what we're going to do is we're going to now apply that physically to our database. It's nothing too hard, especially since we took the time to really plan for it based upon our design here. The one thing that if you have me in courses, or you probably heard me say it over and over again, plan for everything. Don't dive into the code. Don't dive into the script. Plan for it. Write it down. Design it. That's why we're teaching you these techniques. Not only does it make for a final better product, it also allows you to get your jobs done faster. I know students don't think that. They think diving in is the fastest thing to do. Forget about planning for it. I promise you it's not. I've watched students fall behind. I watch them struggle because they just don't sit down and think about it first and write down what they're supposed to be doing. So anyway, my preaching for today. I hope that I didn't bore you, but I'm telling you, I'm one that learned it that way. I was one of the ones that wanted to dive into the code. I was finally taught the right way. I became a better programmer for it, and I became a much quicker programmer when it all got said and done. All right? All right, enough of that. With that said, if you recall from the last video, we looked at this particular design and we determined that we have a one-to-many relationship from instructors to courses, and based upon our rule, we will then put the foreign key of the INT instructor ID in the courses table, right? That'll be our foreign key pointing back to the instructor ID in the instructors table. And because we have a many-to-many relationship, we're going to we're going to create a brand new table called student courses that's going to allow us to have that many-to-many relationship that we talked about in the previous video. All right, so let's go to our script, and this is the script that we developed based upon our design, just putting the tables in, and let's do the work that we're talking about doing. Once again, the first one, instructors to courses. All we really need to do now is put the foreign key into the course table. It's not that hard. I'm going to do a little cutting and pasting here, and we're going to call this instructors, the instructor ID. All right, get everything lined up nice and pretty. And for the most part, I'm going to put a comma there so we don't have errors later on. As you see, the instructor ID is now added to this, which will be the foreign key to the instructors table. I hope you're looking at that going, well, that wasn't hard, and it's not. Once again, though, we designed this thing. We spent some time talking about it and thinking it through, which allows me to immediately make these updates. All right? The next thing we need to do is this new table. We can really add it anywhere at this point in time. I say that, not really. Okay, let me say that differently. We need to add it really after we have constructed the parent tables. We'll talk about that a little bit later on in another video for referential integrity, but kind of trust me on this. We need to create the table that holds our foreign keys after I'm sitting here thinking about this, after we have our parent tables already established. And so you may be saying, well, Bob, you did this. You're absolutely right. So later on, we're going to switch this. I'll tell you what, I'm going to leave that one like that for right now. And later on in another video, I can show you what the effects are once we establish our foreign keys, okay? So with that said, let's go ahead and create this next table. Let me go ahead and do a little bit of copying and pasting again so I don't bore you with typing. And so we're going to have our student courses table, we should say, okay? Our student courses table will also have its own ID, okay, called student, or primary key, I should say, called student course ID, okay? We go ahead and we'll just go ahead and update these constraints very quickly here. And our student course ID, whoops, hold on here. Our student course ID will be our primary key. Does that all look good? I think so. And then finally, what we're going to do is we're going to delete some of this other stuff from our previous table. And what we're going to do then is we're going to bring the foreign keys down based upon the primary keys of the other tables. So we can do INT student ID. All right. And then finally, int course ID. And we'll make that an integer. And of course, not null. All right. Okay, so what do we think? So that wasn't hard, right? So we created this third table for our main-to-many relationship between these two tables here, our students and our courses, called student courses. We gave it a primary key, like I told you we had to, and we went ahead and added the foreign keys, one pointing to the student table and one pointing back to the primary key of the course table. Pretty simple? It is. That's all you need to do. Look at your design and figure it out. Now, you might say, is this it? Am I done? Am I a professional database person? Not quite yet. We still got some room to grow here. And we'll get to that in the coming weeks. But for the most part, I would say you're about 80% there, 70, 80% there. So if you're feeling good about things at this point in time, congratulations, you're on your way. All right. So the one thing I want to talk about a little bit more in this particular video is, and maybe it might also help in regards to understanding. So what do we need to do? So if you recall, we added in the course table this, the instructor foreign key, correct? Well, now we need to populate our tables accordingly. So we added this new ID in here, okay, and this is going to be the foreign key. And now things change a little bit. We're forming this relationship. So we formed the relationship by putting the foreign keys in there. Now we need to form the relationship by adding the data. So with that said, we need to know who actually taught these courses. So what we're going to do is add the data accordingly. I'm going to put some commas in here to allow us to do this. And so what we're saying in this case here is um, who taught .NET Programming 1? Well, let's pretend that Ray taught .NET Programming 1. With that, Ray's primary key is 2, so we can put a 2 there. So you see what happened there? So a 2 is his primary key. This 2, the foreign key, basically represents all of Ray's data. So this is saying .NET Programming, it was actually taught by Ray, and that's the foreign key. Once again, we could have very easily put all of Ray's information up there. But then if Ray is also taught .NET Programming 2, all that information would have been in there twice. And that provides a lot of inefficiencies, all right? I mean, why repeat data over and over and over again? For those in programming, okay, for those taking programming classes, you probably already heard we as developers hate doing things over and over and over again. We like doing things once and thus, shortcutting it, if you will, and making sure that we call it one time. And with this, we accomplish that all the way through. Does that make sense? All right. Math, we'll let old Jim Smith teach math, and I'll come in and teach database design. So there you go. Based upon how we populated this, we now know that Ray taught .NET Programming, .NET Programming 2. Jim taught math, and Bob taught databases. Now you might be saying, well, okay, a number, how in the world am I supposed to know that number refers to whatever's down here? Because we could have 100 professors, right? Once again, this database is not for desktop users. Okay, this database is for database professionals. All we're doing is storing data efficiently. Does everybody understand that? We're storing the data efficiently. And then later on, based upon our select statements that you've already been introduced to, we're going to get this information out through what's called a select join. I'm going to teach you about that a little bit later on this week. All right. Finally, let's go ahead and create our new table, which is called student courses, and add that in there. Let's see, what would be the easiest way for me to do this? I'll just go ahead and copy this one real fast. So once again, you don't have to be bored watching me do this too long. And we're going to have student courses. Let's see, there you go. Student courses, I will get rid of all of this and start typing right here, INT. Let's see, what was it? Student courses ID, student course ID, and then INT, student ID, and then finally INT, course ID, course ID. There you go. And now what this is saying is this. Let's go ahead and delete this data. As a matter of fact, I'm going to delete all of them real fast. There you go. And I'll go ahead. Whoops. It's always fun doing this stuff on videos and trying not to bore you to tears, but also show you a little bit how to do it without making too many mistakes, right? Anyway, it's part of it. So with that said, in this regard, what we're doing, we have our primary key, and our primary key is just going to be like any other primary key that we have added to our table. It needs to be unique. And so if we add 3 rows here, we can go from there, all right? And yeah, we'll do that. We might add a 4th row just so everybody understands what we're doing. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go ahead and add a 5th row. Okay, so here's what we're saying. We want to say that James Jones is taking .NET Programming 1. So in that case, James Jones' primary key is 1, okay? And he's taking .NET Programming 1. There you go. Wow, that was pretty easy, right? All right, bear with me here. I'm going to do a little bit more copying and pasting. And, whoops. There you go. And then what we want to say is Sally is also taking .Programming 1. Once again, her student ID is 2. So this 2 represents Sally. Make sense? Let's say James is also taking math. Well, all right, we'll put a 3 over here representing the course ID. Okay. Jose, I'll have him take my database class. There you go, right there. And finally, we can say that Jose is also taking .NET Programming 1. There you go. Am I saying this correctly? Yeah, this one, Jose is taking there you go. Jose is taking my database class and .NET Programming 1. So now look at this, what we've just accomplished. I know this gets really confusing. This goes back to my previous statement to you. One that says, this is storing of data. This means nothing to the user. All the information will come back out a little bit later on. And if you're confused by this, just be a little bit patient until we show you how the information comes out. And maybe everything together will make more sense on what we're doing. But this is storing the data. This is telling me right here, I got my primary key, that James Jones is taking .NET Programming 1. Sally, number 2, is taking .NET Programming 1. James is also now taking math. Jose is taking database, and Jose is also taking .NET Programming 1. Lan Kim, he's not taking anything right now, so that's not in our database. Does that make sense? Okay. If it does, great. If it's still a little confusing on why do we have nothing but numbers in there, I understand. I know it looks weird, but just look at what it's doing. It's really, these numbers are representing all of that data sitting up here over and over again. That's what it's doing in a more efficient way. And that's it. You now established physically the relationships within your database. All right. The next video is going to talk a little bit more about referential integrity to ensure that the data we put in here actually has integrity, does work, and we don't have what we call orphaned records sitting out there. So take a look at that video.